All right. Wow. I'm like a first time go at this station today. That almost never happens. I got a couple other things I'm wrapping up real quick, but we are live, or I. It's the royal we, if you will. I'm just gonna double check to make sure this looks right. My channel. One live stream. But it's not live right now. It is live right now. Look at me. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm a real boy. All right. Let's see. Got that done. Share it now. Come on. You can do it. Good. Go to here. I know it's petty, but I don't like that it doesn't save my sign in. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy. And I do have some stuff in chat. Maybe. I hope so. That's fine. Okay. That. 10% off. Yeah, why is it awful? Oh. I'm just looking for something that I wanted to pin in the chat. If I don't see it, then we'll get started. Sorry for the delay. Maybe. Come on. Yeah, there we go. And I'll show everybody too, but I wanted to, this is coming soon. Boop. Pin this in the chat. And that's just a new terrain kit, or terrain pack, that we've been working on with Litco. So that's pretty cool. Wanted to share that. It's not up for sale yet, but it is coming. Now, that being said, for those that don't know, I'm Chris. This is Phoenix Gaming. Thank you for joining me. And if you're not watching presently and you jump in later, thanks for watching. I am at 1,263 subscribers. I would love to hit 2,000. So if you like the content, just hit the button, subscribe. It does help me. I don't get paid a ton to do this, but I do enjoy doing it. And the little bit of pay I get, pretty nice. So if you want to hook a brother up, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I appreciate it. Michigan GT just happened. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go over my 3 rounds. We're going to go over my experience with it and how that went. We're going to break down each round a little bit. We're not going to go super in depth, but we're going to talk about how the games went overall, how the matchups went, stuff like that. We're going to talk about some of my takeaways from the GT and from Firefight after its command protocols update. And we're going to just kind of go with the flow from there. I've got a couple things I do want to show you. The first thing we're going to start with is my list. So I'll pull that up on the screen in just a minute. And once I get that on the screen, we'll look at that. And we will look at, beep, beep. We'll look at that pinned link if you haven't seen it already. If you didn't take the time to look at it. Oh my gosh, I'm so big. Oh, that's the wrong screen. That's why. Try that one. And let's shrink it. So let's unshrink. That makes sense. Still? Okay. Let's fix it. Oh, yeah, I am just in. There we go. Bro, it's hard living your life like this. I'm telling you. Go there. And, load up. You don't need to see my pretty face just yet. Alright. So we're going to zoom down here. Zoom a zoom, zoom, and a boom, boom. Before we dig in, this is what I wanted to show everybody. This is the pinned link. This is at litco.net. This will be available for sale pretty soon. This is a little flat pack terrain pack that we've been working on. You've got some nice little fences, little like sniper tower, blown out building, and a crate. It all comes together in one pack. It's, I think, 2 small pieces of MDF. Bam, bam. A lot of detail. Look at all of that detail. It's gorgeous. So I wanted to share that with everybody. All right, now let's talk about what we're here for. Hell yeah, brother. I have a master creeper. So I have a lot of troops in this list. Big shock. You know, I tend to play infantry heavy lists. I have a master creeper. He's there for that exploding rats aura. And that gives you an additional AP for ranged and assault weapons of your troops. So it's actually really good. Especially if you bring stalkers, which are, oh boy, are they the bee's knees. I love them. He's got 2 friends, and the only reason he's got 2 friends, I brought them because I thought, man, if somebody wanted to, with the changes to the way command orders work and stuff, they could bring just some stupid artillery, and they could just try to shell your commanders to try to shut off your ability to do orders. And they could maybe get lucky and even kill a commander. So I was like, I better bring a couple friends. I'd still probably bring a couple friends just because if they need to charge or do anything, it's not just wasted dice then. I did bring the Piper. He didn't bring any friends because he could just make more friends. He's real nice. He's got, you know, that outgoing personality. So he can just make friends. His unit's Overwhelm 3, Resilient 1, Small Unit 3. But the main thing is he just has an aura of regeneration for expendable units within 9. And most of my troops were expendable units. I built this list with that in mind. I had a Tangle Tunneler, and I posted this list, and I had a couple people be like, bro, like, why are you taking the Tangle Tunneler? And that's fair. I actually wasn't too high on it before the Command Protocols update. And I'm still just kind of mixed on it. I just don't know how I feel. I've played probably 5 or 6 games with it in the last couple weeks. And man, I still have no clue how I feel about it. I feel like it is the most, like, it's the most vanilla average you could be. It's not good. It's not terrible. It exists. I had games where it was okay. I had games where it didn't do shit. Like, I don't know. I don't think its points are too far off. I think losing the orange die probably hurt a little bit. I prefer not to bring really big, expensive things like that, especially if I have to worry a lot about keeping them alive. If this thing's bringing an orange command die or 2 orange command dice, whatever it is or was, I don't want to have to be like, oh my gosh, I have to keep this alive. You know, I'd rather have a bunch of cheap command units that can do a little bit of everything. The Aura of Dread, I think I maybe used it once the whole tournament, and not because I forgot, but because it just, like, it wasn't relevant. That's one of those, I look at the Aura of Dread and it kind of feels like Flamers do in this game, where they're very matchup specific. And if you get the right matchup, they're going to feel really good. But if you get the wrong matchup, you're just going to be like, I'm glad I wasted points on this. And that's kind of what I see in the Aura of Dread. I never really needed it. It didn't really matter. There were other things I'd rather spend my command points on. 1 unit of rat swarms, and that's honestly just because of points. I think I was like 35 points short, 36. So it filled that very nicely. I had 2 units of 8 crawlers, and the crawlers, they were fine. They did exactly what I wanted them to do. You know, I had somebody ask, well, why'd you bring 8? Well, it's mostly just points. There's a couple things in here that I probably could have taken out and brought more crawlers or more stalkers, and I probably should have. My list arguably would have just been better had I done that. But there's a few, like, there's just some things that I bring because I like them. I don't care about their efficiency. I'm just like, yes, I like this thing. It's coming with me. I don't fucking care. Like, that's just who I am as a human, and that's just the way it's going to be. But again, they were crawlers. They did what they needed to. They held objectives. They threw some pin tokens. Occasionally would chip some damage. That's it. Their utility. 2 big meaty grip bricks of stalkers. You know, man, them getting horde is absolutely bonkers. With a clean charge, these things will hit on 3s if you have 10 or more models. And it's just nutty. If you bring a big unit like this, like 13, 14, 15 models, and you're throwing that many dice and they just hit on 3s, you're getting damage through volume. It does not matter. You will throw so many dice that something goes through. And I was high on stalkers before. I love them even more now. And that's why we had the Master Creeper Stalker combo, so that I could slam into things with AP1 instead of no AP with all that dice hitting on 3s. Stuff like that. Now these, I brought 2 squads of Maligny, and these are things that I probably could have taken out. I like Maligny. I've seen mixed reviews on them in the community. I've seen some players say they're bad. Some players say they like them. I like them in the right build. This was arguably not the right build. When I was running them before, I was running them in transports, and that felt a lot better because they weren't as vulnerable being on the table, stuff like that. But I still like them. But with the way my list is built, I probably would have been better off dropping the 5 Maligny to bring like 10 stalkers or 10 crawlers. Just more cheap bodies to benefit from the Piper order or aura, stuff like that, and just having that extra volume. Like, don't get me wrong, the heavy ray guns are very good, and with the Master Creeper, that's a lot of, you know, if you're not blazing away, unit 5, that's 10 dice at AP2. That's pretty good. So I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, based on the way the rest of the list was built, I would have probably been better off dropping the Maligny to bring stalkers or something along those lines. And now for the memery. I hope you guys are ready. I had jokingly said something about bringing as many tunnel runners as I could because I have, like, I think I have 12 of them. They're just, most of them are built. Most of them are painted to some degree. I think I have 3 of them unbuilt right now, but the rest of them are built with paint on them. I wouldn't say they're finished, but they're at least, like, playable. And I was like, oh man, I'll just take as many tunnel runners as I can at 1,250 points. Well, I did try to run 8, and that was just too many points tied up in tunnel runners. So I was like, all right, well, we'll just run 2 units of 3 instead of 2 units of 4. And it was funny. Like, I wouldn't say it was good, but it was funny. And it wasn't bad. What it did, though, was it hampered my ability to deal with heavy armor. But fortunately for me, I didn't really hit too many matchups where that was an issue. And we'll get into those matchups in a little bit. You know, they're AP2 with Blaze Away, 3 dice, they hit on 5s. So, you know, it's one of those where after playing, again, about, gosh, probably 6 or 7 games with this list, somewhere in there for the last couple weeks, I like tunnel runners. I still think they're just a little bit overpointed. I don't think it's drastic. I think they could come down 5 points per model and they would still be... I'd still be like, maybe these are a little overpointed. You know, I'd have to really think about it on whether or not they were. Their armor 7 with 3 hit points. Their fast was the big thing, and they can subterranean deploy. 1218 is really nice, and they throw a lot of melee dice. Armor 7 with 3 hit points is not as durable as you think it is. You know, it was one of those like, these should be pretty durable, and then, nope. But that's okay. They did what they needed to do, and there were a couple games where they were real clutch, so we'll get into that. And then, last but certainly not least, my absolute favorite, the Mutant Rat Fiend. I don't think I've ever been to a tournament where I didn't run at least one of these stupid things. And again, this is one of those units that you can tell me till you're blue in the face that it is bad, that it is not an efficient use of points. I'm just going to nod at you and say, I don't care. Like, I love this thing. It makes me laugh. I put it on the table. And, you know, learning how to use it has arguably made me better with it and just made me a better player. Because it is, again, kind of vulnerable. Yes, it has 5 hit points and it's armor 7, but there's a couple armies in the game where they can just pick that thing up with one activation. You know, Forge Fathers theoretically could do it with some of their stuff. And even if they didn't, they could really cripple it to where now I have to decide what I want to do with it. Asterians absolutely can do it with one activation. Plague can do it with a single activation with the right units. So there's multiple armies out there that can just torpedo this thing off the table, whether it's with a tank or something like the Corruption. So you have to play it intelligently. Early on, what I would do is I'd take that shield tunneler and I would just walk the shield tunneler up. Oh, you can't even see me. Early on, what I would do is I would take my shield tunneler, put the Rat Fiend right behind it, and just walk them together. And then if you did get a line on the Rat Fiend, it was okay because I was able to use the shield if I needed to. And with them both being height 4, the tunneler would block line of sight and I could get cover, all that jazz. That being said, I have made it my life's mission to play this army without a shield tunneler. After the command protocols and they went up in points and they got a rules nerf, I was like, all right, well, we're going to see if we can make this army work without one. It's tough. It's real tough. And I did a whole video on linchpin units on why I think the shield tunneler for them is a linchpin unit. But it's one of those where it's forced me to look at things a lot differently. How can I do this differently? Because the tunneler is such a Swiss Army knife, do anything kind of unit. Okay, how do I replace that? Well, I can bring more bodies because I don't have like 150 points being chewed up. Now, I did bring the Tangle Tunneler, but they are not the same, as I'm sure everybody can attest that's played with or against this army. Like, there's nothing wrong with the Tangle Tunneler. It can hide and shoot with its psychic weapons. It can, I'm going to pull it up for everybody again real quick. You know, it can hide and it can shoot with its psychic weapons. And it is armor 8 with heavy armor. Yep. You know, so it's not that it's bad, but that shield bubble brings so much to the table for your army if you're rats, vermin. You know. That being said, like I said, you're going to be hard-pressed to see me put these guys on the table and not bring that Mutant Rat Fiend. It's 615, assaults on 3s, 7 armor, 5 hit points, 8 attacks, AP3 anti-tank with bulky, regeneration, terrifying, unflinching, vicious assault, countercharge. It's just a handful. And people have to really respect it, right? 15 inches, pretty far, pretty fast, and it hits like a truck. Even with a blind charge, you're hitting on 4s. So you're getting pretty good volume at 8 dice. You know, so you're going to average 5 hits. That's not terrible. And, you know, you can unhinder its charge, so you could still just hit on 3s if you wanted to. You could give it Teeth and Claws, which would give it Frenzy, but it already has Vicious, so there's not like a ton of reason to do that. But these are all important things, and knowing how to use it and knowing how to threaten with it really, really handy. Now, we talked about that. There's some changes to a few of the orders I wanted to discuss real quick too, because that was also predicated on why and how I built my list the way I did. The big one was volatile. The change to volatile, awesome. Really like it. Before the command protocols, what volatile did was it gave you +1 to hit and bonus AP of 1, but you can never reroll hit rolls of 1. And if you rolled a 1, was it, I think each one causes 1 point of damage. And if you take a point of damage in that way, you're activated and pinned once you finish your shoot action or steady aim, whatever you did to do that. And it's a lot of fun. What it used to do though is it was very weapon specific. Like you could only do it with this weapon or that weapon, this weapon or that weapon. Now it's any unit can use it. So it opens the door for crawlers to hit on 5s with AP1 ray guns. It opens the door for Malignity to hit on 4s with AP2 ray guns. You know, so that was a lot of my thinking behind the Malignity was like, okay, I have the Master Creeper that can buff their AP, but I also have Volatile that can buff their AP and get them hitting on 4s. And then if I need to do a steady aim, I can still do a steady aim to have them still hitting on 4s. And Volatile is one that I think I used pretty much every game. So that was good. I like that. That was a really good change. Outside of that, there's not a ton I wanted to go over. So let's talk about my matchups. Round 1. I got a mirror match, and I want to say up front, I think there was definitely 3 Veerman players, including myself. There may have been 4. And as cool as that was to see, because I'm only an average painter at best, and all of them had much nicer painted armies than I did, I didn't enjoy having 2 mirror matches. Like, it is what it is. But it did make me want to put my Veerman up just so that I didn't run into the risk of hitting mirror match after mirror match. If that's how a lot of tournaments are gonna be kind of spread out, right? Like if we have 2 Asterian players and we have 1 Forge Father player and 1 Enforcer player. I don't know if there were any GCPS players. We had at least 1 Plague player, a Maison Labs player. You know, like there was a good spread of all the different factions, but then there were 3 or 4 Veerman players. And I was just like, I don't want to do mirror matches every time I go to a tournament. And that's just me bitching. You know, that's all that is. But name's Josh. Super nice dude. He's not really played a ton, so he got to learn a lot. Like a lot of our game was me helping him, teaching him, helping him understand how his army works, stuff like that. Because again, he had Veerman. And I don't want to say it was a cookie cutter list, because I have no idea. It did have a lot of the Volt Chaser stuff in it. And I think the Volt Chaser stuff is pretty darn good. But I don't think most people have had enough table time with it to make it sing right. I don't think it's been out long enough for people to have gotten enough, table time to make it really hum. Because I did think about running a lot of it, but I couldn't get it all built and painted before the tournament. I wasn't gonna put that stress on myself. I already have a lot of stress of things I need to build and paint for different events that I have coming up, and I wasn't gonna add that to it. So he did have a lot of that. That was cool to see, though. I liked seeing it. And, you know, we talked about some of the different stuff he had, because he had a shield tunneler. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he just had a regular tunneler. He had a tunneler. I just don't remember which one. And that was one of those where I was glad. I was glad I got to play him for a couple reasons. One, a super nice guy. But also because I have a lot of experience with the army he's using. So if he can walk away from round 1 having learned something from me, like that's a net positive for the community, and that's a net positive for him. So, you know, in that respect, super happy. Round 2, I played against Austin. Austin is one of our local players. He plays Asterians. I play him weekly. And so I was like, man, I kind of thought we'd end up playing each other just because we play a lot. I was just hoping it would have been round 3 instead of round 2. But he had a very, very cipher heavy Asterians list. Very static sit and shoot kind of list with a few units of like Matsudan and Hanawa marionettes to kind of walk around, play cleanup, and grab objectives. Very well thought out list. And it's one I've struggled against with Veerman specifically because that tank, the assassin, has just had its way with me. And I have racked my brains on how I'm going to get around it. You know, I'm just like, oh my gosh. And even leading up to the event, I was just like, man, there's a good chance I end up playing him. He's a pretty darn good player. If I hit him, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, how do I get around this assassin? So what I ended up doing was I put both my units of tunnel runners in Deep Strike. They just started off the table. I might have even put my Tangle Tunneler. I don't remember. I think that was on the table because I think I had a good place to hide it and just kind of maneuver it. But I know my tunnel runners off the table. And what that did was that forced him to have to respect the fact that they could both pop up anywhere. And while they aren't extremely accurate, they throw enough volume that I can chew through shields and then kill a unit, chew through shields and then kill a unit. And what ended up happening is it wasn't even them. My Rat Fiend, I had charged, I don't know, maybe a Matsudan unit. It was something, but I charged something towards the middle of the board. And after my consolidations, I was within charge range of that assassin tank. And he let loose. He was like, oh God, I gotta kill that thing. I can't. And both shots missed. And as soon as that happened, we both looked at the table and looked at each other. And it was like we knew that was it. The fact that that tank did not kill that Rat Fiend meant that was game. And it sure was. Because I ended up activating first, and I immediately activated the Rat Fiend, charged into the tank, completely destroyed it. Once that tank was gone, it opened up the floor for my tunnel runners and my Tangle Tunneler to be able to maneuver around a lot better because I didn't have this like board range anti-tank gun just deleting everything it could see. And that allowed me to, you know, pop tunnel runners up where I needed to get rid of his other tank because he had the assassin and then he had some other plasma tank. I can't remember what it's called. But it did allow me to pop the tunnel runners up, use one to blast shields, and then maybe chip a damage. The other one finished it off. And then from there, I was able to just kind of sandwich him in. And that was it. It was one of those where early on, I thought the game was going to be real bad for me because of the way it started. I kind of loaded one side as I usually do, especially at 1250. And the way the objectives were set up, it was manpower was the mission, and the way the objectives were set up, I loaded one side, had a bunch of stuff, ready to shoot it off in waves. He immediately came in and just like wiped 2 of my command units. Boom, boom, boom. And I was just like, oh, poop. But, you know, I just kind of kept coming back in waves, stuck to the plan. And sure as shit, like that plan started working out because it started removing him 1 unit at a time. And then once that tank was gone, like I said, it just opened the table up for all my heavier hitting stuff to be able to maneuver around and do what it needed to do. So I ended up winning. It was a pretty convincing win. And I think I got like 1,000 kill points on him. And that led me to mirror match number 2 of the day. Justin. Can't remember his last name. Gorgeous army. He played Veerman also. And honestly, his list is not super dissimilar from what I was running when I first started playing Veerman. You know, he had a couple progenitors. He didn't have a shield tunneler, but he had the new baby tunneler. I forget what they're called. And then he had the saturation tunneler. And, you know, just a bunch of bodies. So, you know, in a lot of ways, it was kind of a similar build to what I had. But it was different enough that it was like, oh, okay, I see what's up. You know, he had a couple of the Volt Chaser units, but they were in the tunneler that went into Deep Strike, the baby tunneler. Again, its name escapes me. Super nice dude. Had a great time with him. Our game was wild. We tied on score, and then he beat me on kill points and tournament points because he managed to kill a command unit. And you know that. So for those that don't know, the way the Michigan GTs run, Brian, first of all, hell of a job. You did great. I appreciate your time and your effort, buddy. It was a very fun event. And for those that don't know, Brian does, I think he does or is involved with the Dead Zone podcast, so check that out. But he opened up, right? So the GT, the way it's formatted is you get 5 tournament points for a win. You get 2 tournament points if you kill a command unit, but you only score that once. And then you get 1 tournament point if you have one of your units in your opponent's deployment zone at the end of the game. And we both scored basically everything. Except I didn't kill a command unit. And that's one of those, like, Justin, good player. Very good player. I really appreciate the game that he and I had. It was a very, very, very chess feeling kind of like back and forth. The game opened up with his crawlers just being on fire. I moved 3 tunnel runners up, and nothing had line of sight to it without moving, but then he was able to move some crawlers around and shoot my tunnel runners. And we're talking like a squad of 15, maybe 20. So, you know, you math that out, and he doesn't do that much damage. In fact, I'm gonna math that out right now. Oh, that's fine. I just have a bunch of messages. Let's math that out right now. So calculator. So let's assume it's a 20 squad. And then it's what? 25. And then he's going to damage it on 7s. So he averages killing a body. Spikes, lifts 2 bases, damages the 3rd. I fail the leadership at the end of the round. Immediately lose a 170 point unit to like a 100 point unit. Like, that's a massive trade up. A little bit later, I think in the same turn, he did the same exact thing to my Rat Fiend. Just spikes, lifts it immediately. And so, like, I'm pretty sure it was turn 1. I'm down like almost 300 points. And it's not junk 300 points. It's a lot of my hard-hitting stuff. And it wasn't like he concentrated fire and was like, I'm going to shoot it with everything I've got until it's dead. It was literally, I'm going to shoot it with this unit of fucking crawlers. Ha ha ha, pick it up. And I was just like, oh, piss. You know? So then I'm looking at the table going, all right, well, how do I salvage this? So my next plan from there was, all right, well, I guess what I do is I just torpedo things into his deployment zone, because we were playing control, and that's the mission where you want to get across the table and score points for being on your opponent's half of the table. So I was like, all right, so I guess I'm just going to torpedo units into his deployment zone one at a time and just force him to have to deal with them. And sure as shit, like, that did work, because I was able to kind of like bully something and then bully something, and then he'd respond by shooting it or charging it or whatever. But what it did was it kind of got him in this little bit of a quagmire where he was just kind of stuck in this pit where yeah, that's me, OP. He was stuck in this pit where if he left my units in his deployment zone, I was going to be able to score, because he had pushed up a little bit more than I had, and it allowed me to push into him and then kind of keep pushing. Whereas I had stayed a little bit further back, a little more cagey, so he didn't have those charge targets to leapfrog. Needs nerfed. That's right, dude. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But yeah, he didn't have those charge targets to hit and then leapfrog into it. And because he didn't have those charge targets, he had to continuously move up the table. And so what that did for me was, all right, I just keep sending him. And then he had the tunneler come down from deep strike. And he could have brought it in my side of the table, but he didn't really have a good spot for it because I was playing such a static game. I started with everything on the table, and that may have been a mistake. Like, it really might have. But what I did was I started with everything on the table in order to spread out because I knew he had the tunneler that could come up anywhere, and it was like, all right, I'm going to keep it in front of you, or in front of me. Didn't really have a good spot to bring it out. So he ended up bringing it back into his deployment zone. And again, for me, that was a net positive because I was able to score all my points, even if he scored all his. And then at the end of the game, we just tied. And you know, it's one of those where I knew when I lost the tunnelers or the tunnel runners and the rat fiend round one to just like junk shooting that a tie was the best I could hope for. Like, I was pretty confident I could work out a tie. He'd probably beat me on the tournament points in terms of like getting the commander or kill points, whatever. Like, he'd get me on the tiebreaker. But I was like, all right, well, we're just going to aim for a score tie and we're going to see what happens. We're going to let Jesus take the wheel and that's it. So we got done, though, and it was just like, man, what an outstanding game that was. You know, at no point did I think either one of us were definitely like, yes, this game is mine. Arguably, because we ended up, I think we only played, they were 4 turns instead of 5 at the GT. And I think we finished 3 because we were kind of like gabbing a little bit, bullshitting a little bit. And if it goes one more turn, maybe he wins. Maybe I can keep the tie. Like, I definitely don't win. I know that. But I walked away from that pretty damn happy that I was able to squeeze a tie out of that. Like, woo! I ended up coming in 3rd place overall, which, again, I need to get with Brian. Not because I'm, like, upset about it. I just want to understand how their scoring metrics work. Because 2nd place was my buddy Austin. And we mathed it out. And I got more tournament points than Austin. And then I beat him in our head-to-head, which means I had a better record, theoretically. Technically, no. You know, like scenario points, I had a better record. But tournament points, if that makes sense, and kill points, I didn't because of the tiebreakers. So I'm not sure how he got ahead of me. It's got to have something to do with kill points. I just don't know what yet. And good job to him, though. Like, phenomenal player. He did great. We were both really happy to see each other do well. My daughter came in absolute last place. But what's cool about that is she's never played the Michigan GT format, so she didn't understand any of the tournament point stuff. And I didn't really talk to her about it because I didn't really think about it because I completely forgot until we got there. But she was in every game. Like, there wasn't a single game where it was like they were all her games to lose. There was never a game where she was just like, oh, I'm just getting the break speed off me. This is awful. Like, generally speaking, even if the score was big, because I think round 2 she played a dude named Sam, who was also a super nice guy. Got to talk to him. And I want to say Sam beat her on points pretty good. But what ended up happening was, like, she effectively just tabled Sam because she was like, well, if I can't score points, I'm just going to kill your stuff. And definitely, like it was one thing that a lot of the players she played against were telling me was like, no, she's got her rules down. She's got her positioning down. She's just got to get the scoring the next level. So that's really good to hear from her because she was really happy to walk away even with 3 losses just because every game was close. And it felt really good for her to be able to go to a tournament. And even if she lost, they were all close and she had a great time and everybody was super nice. And I must say, this is one of the best gaming communities I've ever been a part of. Like, I don't think I've ever been at a table for a Firefight and just been like, man, this guy's a prick. I hope I never play him again. So that's cool. So yeah, Michigan GT went really well. I also, let me grab it. I also got some bling. I'm going to show that off. That's the Best Sportsman Award. And not to brag, because, you know, that's not what good sportsmen do. But, you know, sportsmen? I don't know. But that's the 2nd year in a row I've got Best Sportsman also. So that's really cool. I do appreciate that. I am glad that I'm glad that when I walk away from a table at a tournament, people have had a great time and they've had such a good time that they want to vote for me. Like, that makes me feel good. So again, I want to thank everybody because that makes me feel good to know that your experience playing with me was such a positive that you were comfortable voting for me like that. So again, thank you. Outside of that, we did, we got a couple minutes. We did a follow-up tournament. It was a local one the next day. And Austin and I took armies we had never played before, and we both got our teeth kicked in. I took GCPS because I wanted to get a feel for them because I've been doing some videos on them. And I think the first game I played against Marauders, and I did okay. Like, arguably, Shane probably should have won that game, but there were a couple little mistakes he made here and there where it was like, okay. But then the next two games, I just got smoked. It was Plague and then Maison Labs. And so, like, I got one win. Austin got one win. Austin beat me. Like, it was so stupid. But, like, the first game when I was playing against Plague, I was like, man, I don't know how to approach them with this army. Like, this is tough. But then I started kind of digging back into it, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to see how this works. So, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on GCPS, because honestly, I don't know that I would ever play that army regularly. There's way too much sit and shoot, and not enough, like, move and bonk. But my takeaways were there's a few units that, from a competitive sense, you almost have to have. Like, you almost have to bring tank hunters. Because you need a melee threat that can go in and clean something up. You need either recruits or marines, just a cheaper unit that you can use as a buffer to bait those charges and move block people. And then I would say riot dudes are also probably on that you have to bring them list. Because once I played with it, and I played with like a lot of rangers and veterans because I was like, wow, these look really good. They look fun. And they were, but as I started losing them, it was like, oh, I cannot keep up. Like, the attrition fall off is too great here. I need junk units. And that's why I was like, okay, well, probably a couple units of recruits to just throw up front and just be like, okay, here they are. So I've had people talk to me about GCPS, like, how would you play them? How would you play them? Well, now that I see how they work a little bit more, I would make sure I have a couple units of recruits and at least one medic. Like, the medic seems like an auto take. I would probably bring at least 1 to 2 units of tank hunters, and then 1 to 2 units of the riot boys. And then everything else is whatever you want to bring. I'd honestly bring a couple mules, and I'd bring a couple mules with the anti-tank laser. And that's how I would probably set it up, is I would probably try to spread all my anti-tank shooting out as much as possible. Because that was the other thing I noticed was like, oh man, there's not a ton of AP in this army. Like, this is weird. And there's not a ton of volume. Like, you have orders that can increase your volume, but how do you overcome this? Oh, well, you overcome this by bringing a couple mules, or maybe the armored car, and then you just kind of spread all your anti-tank out. The Wolverine's kind of cool, but I don't know that it's worth it in a 1250 point game. And it's not accurate enough, I guess, to really justify it. Like, 3 dice hitting on 5s means you're going to hit 1.5 times every time you shoot it. And that's just like, I think it needs 1 more die. Like, if it shot 4 dice, so you're averaging 2 hits, that's probably better. Especially because I don't think a lot of orders really affect it. So I'll have to double check on that. I know there's like a vehicle order, like a command vehicle that does something, but overall, that was kind of my thought process, was like, okay, we take either tank hunters or we take riot boys or both, and then probably put riot boys in the mules, kind of use the mules to go around and like try to snipe higher armor things. And then once you snipe those higher armor things with your mules, then you can also put the riot shield boys out on the objectives. They're armor 6. They've got controlled fire. They've got 2-shot knockback weapons, and they throw 3 dice in melee. And then you've got that really cool order where you get what, +1, it's elite, bonus AP, and then I believe you can boost it for +1 to hit in melee. So it's one of those where, you know, a unit of 5 Riot Boys is throwing 15 dice at -1 AP, and if you're charging, I think it could hit on 3s. I'd have to double check that, but that's one of those where it was like, oh, okay. Now I'm kind of starting to see how some of these need to be stacked up, layered up, stuff like that. So that being said, again, big shout out to Brian and, you know, Mantic for having a great event at the Michigan GT. I am looking at potentially doing an ATC style team event for December. I don't know if I'll be able to get enough teams to be able to commit. I would need 12 total players to be able to pull it off. And I'm pretty sure locally we could get close to that. If I can guarantee that I'm going to have 12 players, then yes, I will 100% do it. If you don't know what an ATC event is, it's a team event, but not like doubles. Everybody brings a full list. So if it's a 1,250 point event, for example, and you have 3 players on your team, all 3 players bring 1,250 points each. And then if your team plays against my team, if I'm the team captain, the team captains of the 2 teams have this process that they use to try to fish for the best matchups they can. So, for example, if my team, and usually you can't repeat armies. So, like if my team had Veerman, Plague, and Forge Fathers, and then you had Enforcers, Forge Fathers, and GCPS. We would look at those lists and go, okay, well, GCPS is not, like this specific GCPS is not kitted out to fight Forge Fathers. So there's a process where you try to force those matchups where it's like, all right, well, we're try to make sure that this Forge Fathers army plays against that GCPS army, because that's going to be a real rough matchup for that GCPS army. And that's how that works. So just so you're aware, you know, and I'm not going to get too into the process. There's whole YouTube videos dedicated into breaking down the process, and I promise you people still fuck it up at ATC events. So me doing it in 30 seconds on a quick, you know, like YouTube video stream, not going to help at all. So, but yeah, if you're interested, make sure you shoot me a message or whatever, drop a comment, let me know, and I can start getting a preliminary roster together. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. I'm going to be looking forward to Mr. OP Needs Nerfed. He and I are going to be bashing some butts in a little bit here. I got to finish packing up and start heading that way. So next week, we will be doing our Orders from the Front podcast. And then I'm also going to be dropping the next episode on, I don't remember if I did Forge Fathers already or if I did GCPS. Whichever one's done, that's what I'm going to drop. And my schedule right now is going to be, I'm going to try to do a video a week, which I've been pretty damn good about doing. But every other week. So like, I'm going to do Orders from the Front, which is a Conflict 47 series. Fantastic game. Have a lot of fun with it. And that's going to be every 2 weeks. And then I'm going to do Firefight every 2 weeks. And that gives me the chance to alternate and do different things so that I'm not just like constantly grinding the same stuff. Lets me not get burned out. So I hope all of you have a great weekend. I want to thank everybody once again for sitting here and chatting with me. And we will see everybody next week.